Well, hey everyone, and welcome to the Bold Vision Podcast. I'm your host, Sonya Sanchez, owner and founder of Bold Vision SEO. Today's episode is a really special one because I'm joined by someone who's not just a powerhouse in the business world. He's also my business partner in crime, I should say. He's the global leader of our team and the driving force behind the CRM and AI systems and strategies that we bring to clients. With over 2 decades of entrepreneur experience and a track record of building teams and systems around the world, Kalvin is here to help us unpack how to go from very overwhelmed to organized, especially if you're a construction business owner, contractor, trades executive trying to grow without a plan. And, we can help everybody. I mean, everybody knows that construction's kind of my niche, but now that I've opened up this door with Kalvin, I am learning that there's no business that we can't help. So, Kalvin's been, behind the scenes of a dozen successful companies. And today we're doing real talk, how to stop doing everything yourself. Start building systems that grow with you. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's just dive into it. Kalvin, I am so excited to have you here and thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you, Sonya. It's, as you mentioned, it's been really interesting working alongside you over the past year. Time goes so fast, and growing businesses. I've had many of my own companies, and a lot of people talk about how successful they are, sort of the Instagram story, everything's amazing. People don't talk about the failures or how hard business is. And every time I get an opportunity to, speak publicly or come onto a podcast, it's really the focus that I like to focus on is about the struggles that people go through, because all of us as entrepreneurs, we go through these struggles, and especially when we start new businesses and new ventures, so excited to be here and, really get the word out of my experience. And, as we say, as long as we can influence somebody to make better decisions and grow in their business, then we're always growing ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. So let's just dive in and we're going to start kind of on not a negative tone, but, the mistakes or the things that you've seen. And then we're going to, easily transition into all the positive things and how we can really help companies. So what is the number one mistake that you see business owners make when they're trying to scale? I mean, over the years, what is something that you have seen?
So actually, if you take that back a little bit of a step, is actually planning and understanding that the product or service that you're going to offer or sell, there is a big enough marketplace for it. So, for example, with no disrespect to anybody, if you make little charms or hairbands that go in a hairband or something for a child, for example, you have to sell a lot of those products to make a good business. If you're doing consultancy and you sell yourself short and you're charging not enough compared to the market value of a consultant, you might get lots of work, but you become super busy and you see other consultants who are making 4 or 5 times as much as you. And it's not about you being devalued, but I see people who, inadvertently, subliminally, devalue themselves because they get scared of not winning that job because they're at an early stage in their career or in their business. So that's definitely something that comes to mind immediately. And the other thing is, if somebody said to me today, give me one tip on how to run a business properly, every venture that I've started, the very first thing I do is I create from scratch a profit and loss and cash flow forecast. We explain a business as kind of having a child. So when it starts, it's a little baby, and you need to hold it, you need to put a diaper on it, you need to feed it, you need to cuddle it, and it's very hungry, and that hunger in a business is cash. So we start putting money into a business, and for a period of time, it might not start returning anything, and we have to keep feeding the baby. Then the baby grows up and it turns into this toddler. It can walk around, it starts to talk, which is getting clients. Then it starts to become a problem and it starts breaking all the stuff in your house, and you realize your house is not baby proof. So then things start, you think, hang on, I haven't got processes here. And, a bigger client comes through and they say, have you got a contract? And you go, yeah, sure, I've got a contract. And you're away creating a contract. And this is, if we don't plan properly, this is the natural progression of a business. Turns into a teenager, it starts to mature, but you can't get too big for your boots. You start thinking that you know everything.
Right.
And then you start dealing with bigger clients, or you start spending more money than you should because you didn't look after the cash flow. And eventually it gets into its early 20s and past that, where it starts to mature, and then the business actually really starts to churn. So I think, in summary, really, of that is planning a business, understanding the maths, not overspending, and keeping as much money in the business as long as you can is going to feed you forevermore in the future with a business. So it's definitely around the profit and loss and the cash flow forecasting.
Very good. I really like that. So, as we're talking about the pain of chaos and, businesses starting and everything, what would you say to owners who are still running everything like from spreadsheets or sticky notes or, a notebook? I mean, because they're so old school that they're just still they don't know another way, right? I mean, I find myself in that position a lot of times where I have all these freaking notebooks all over the damn place, and it's like, oh my god, and I'm overwhelmed. So, what do you have to say to people that are doing that shit? I mean, like, I know we're in the 20th century now, like we shouldn't be doing that. We know we shouldn't be doing that, but it's a habit. So how do you break that? What do you do?
So I have no association or affiliate with Remarkable, but there is a notepad, an electronic notepad called a Remarkable that I've had for about 5 years. So you can get, iPads or Android pads with a writable pen. So first thing would be go and get one of those. If you don't have big budget, you go and find something like that on Facebook Marketplace. Just get everything electronic as fast as you can. Deal with systems and processes. Understand that you're always growing and developing as a business and a business owner. Don't take what you might think are mistakes as harsh lessons. They're part of your learning curve with growing, but definitely embrace technology as soon as you can. And even if your acceptance of technology is rejection to start with, then just a little bit at a time. People talk about all this amazing stuff, and I know that we'll talk about AI today, but they talk about all this amazing stuff in technology, and I have conversations most days, and actually they're educational conversations around the technology that you can put into your business. And some people say, our business is amazing, we're not going to need that. And we say, your business is amazing now. However, it won't be if you don't embrace something, because your competitors are going to, and they're going to steal your future market share. Forget your current clients who are loyal to you. It's the future market share where you're at risk. A particular friend of mine from years ago, they had a really amazing printing company in the city of Portsmouth in the UK, where I'm from and where I was born. And it was a third or fourth generation business. His great grandpa, the guy that I knew, owned it, then his grandpa, and then his dad. And I remember him saying to me, I was telling my dad about these new website things that people are going to need. And his dad said, we're a printing firm. We get our business from flyers. We sell flyers. We're not changing. And he said, Dad, please, let's build a website. And then a few years later, he said, Dad, there's this new thing called Facebook. Everyone's on it, business is going to be done on it. And his dad laughed at him. And this is not just a tale, this is a true story. And
I believe it.
ultimately, and unfortunately, they went from the biggest printing firm, probably in the south coast of the UK, to bankruptcy in a few years, because they didn't embrace tech, and because, with absolute respect to them, the dad, the third gen business owner, was stubborn and I don't want to say arrogant, but almost dismissive of the embrace of technology. And when we move into AI today, there's lots of really big influencers. Somebody who's really big called Gary Vaynerchuk, if you've heard of
Of
him.
course.
He's talking about AI, and he's saying this is the biggest thing since the internet. So, just bringing that back to today, notes, sticky pads, don't know where everything is. Just embrace technology. You've got voice cloning, with things like Zoom, you've got AI recorders that will transcribe your entire call. And it's actually relatively easy to use those levels of technology today. So, but just embrace it and just get on with it. It's really important to do that.
I agree with you 100%. And so I'm just going to put my little 2 cents in. I know I'm here to get, as much information from you, but I just have to tell a story also, being in the construction industry and being in the field. So as a superintendent, you are supposed to see the work that's going on, document everything. If there's an RFI, if, something comes up, it's my job to go get the information and find out. Well, I started using AI in my construction business. In my job. Now, I don't have that job anymore. I chose to leave it because my passion is helping small businesses and doing what I'm doing. But at the time, this was probably a year ago, I was working on a federal government job in DC, and it was for a GSA, which is, huge government contract people. And I was at a very prominent federal building, and we were doing a huge steam pipe job. Okay, this building is like from the 1900s. I mean, it has no technology. I mean, it doesn't have proper HVAC, and so we're repiping and redoing the whole system. And I swear there was probably about 16 people, federal people on the project, between project managers, executives, all of these people. Well, I'm just going to, bring this down to a very simple. We hit a spot where we didn't know what to do. The specs said one thing, the contract said one thing, the architect wrote one thing on the drawings, and we get to this spot and we're like, okay, well, we don't know how these pipes are going to run. And nobody could give me an answer. Nobody. We were in meeting after meeting after meeting. And I'm talking, I was with very smart people. People with MBAs, people that had been in the military. Men that I respected. And nobody could give us an answer. And I took everything. I recorded every meeting that we had. And by the third meeting, I was very frustrated because they kept saying, well, you got to go look here and you got to go do this. And, somebody's going to give us an answer. I took everything. I went to the spec book. I took the RFI. I went to the contract. I took everything. I put everything in a chat GPT. I had built an AI agent at the time just for that project. You had an answer in 10 minutes. 10
Yep.
minutes. It took me
Yes.
10 minutes. These guys are back here arguing about where the hell the pipe's going to go. I'm at my computer. I'm grabbing, I'm putting it in. 10 minutes later, I go walk back. I said, gentlemen, there's an email in your inbox. Y'all might want to go check it out. The next day it was approved. Do you know that project would have been delayed probably another 2 months? It was just like, it's that powerful. But you have to give it the right information. I couldn't have gone in a chat GPT and said, hey, I'm on Herbert Hoover and I'm trying to figure out a pipe and what do I do with it? No, I had to tell it the slope, the information, the contract. I had to feed it, all of the correct information so that it could dive in and find in a 300-page spec book where exactly it said, exactly what the regulations were. And then it could take the contract and find out, were we in in the right space to make that correction? And what was the solution? Because people were arguing. So I don't know. I just wanted to throw that in there because AI is a very powerful tool. So
Absolutely.
let's go into the client. All right. I know AI works, AI works, but you taught us about the printer, the printing people and all that. So let's just go back to, I want to know, what is the hidden cost, okay, of not following up with leads and not communicating, the poor communication. And then we'll go to the AI, how that helps us, because that's where the gap, I feel, falls. I mean, you make those connections, but who has time to know or remember with the sticky notes? Oh, I have Tom, I have John, I have, let's talk about that.
Yeah, sure. So I always like to use examples of recent conversations. So before we started recording the podcast, we just closed a new deal with a very successful gym company. So they have a few locations, and they have a natural churn of people becoming members. This is a premium service. So, if you said that a cheap gym was $50 a month, for example, this place is like $400 a month. It's a specialist gym, this particular business. And they have a very, very good marketing strategy. They're getting a lot of new leads through the door. They're ready to grow. They're ready to fill all of their current available memberships that they could sell and open up a fourth location. So that's their objective. And as I was speaking to them, they said, and something I always ask is, I say, have you been collecting data? And they're, I've been collecting data for a few years. And I said to them, how big's your database of inactive people that you haven't spoken to? They said 10,000. And I said to them, awesome, they're doing a great job at bringing new people in. Of course, every business has to bring in new leads. And then part of the strategy of what we're putting together for them is a database re-engagement. So we're going to use AI. We're going to use conversational AI. So conversation is anywhere that you would type a message. So it might be a SMS, a text message. It might be a WhatsApp message. It might be social media or a website. And we can go out to that database. So in this example, let's say a SMS campaign, and we can send them a series of nurturing SMSs, asking them about what are their fitness goals, and what are your objectives? Are you considering rejoining a gym or changing gym at the moment? And then as those people engage, the AI can then have full conversations with them like a human, with an objective or a call to action of trying to book an appointment with them. So it can have a conversation, answer questions, talk about locations, availability, pricing, and it can say, this looks like a good fit for you. Why don't we book you an appointment, and send them the link to book the appointment? Or it could be set up in a way where it books the appointment for them from just talking to them. And interestingly, on that particular conversation, I pointed out something that they maybe hadn't considered. And I said, actually, you have the best database in the world that you're not engaging. And they kind of looked a bit confused. And I said, as you get older, you need to exercise. So your database that 4 years ago maybe didn't need to exercise out so much is actually maturing like a fine wine. So it's now maturing, and they probably need to exercise more. And if they're not engaging with somebody, then actually the requirement for you may have grown subconsciously. So actually, if we re-engage that database, they want to take on another 100 to 200 members total. So they've got 10,000 who showed interest at some point. So if you do the maths, that's a pretty low number if we get a good engagement going. So that's like a live example of a database re-engagement, and then using conversational AI. Now, we also use voice AI as well. So voice AI is inbound and outbound calls. Now, again, interestingly, we had a meeting this morning with a couple of clients who were earlier adopters of what we've put in place and what's grown to become the systems we supply today. And they've been doing like super cold outreach, buy a database and just stick an AI agent and phone loads of people. And it's very mixed response. The response rate is quite low, 10, 20, maybe 25%. And then, of course, they'll close a certain percentage of those 25%. However, when you have inbound leads or people that used to be clients, or let's say like a dentist or an optician's or a service-based business where you might book appointments, then actually voice AI, so phoning the AI, having a conversation with them, is actually really, really effective because the people are coming the other way. So rather than you reaching out, they're coming towards you. So if we did a Google search, Yeah, or a lot of people are now just using ChatGPT to search for stuff. So if you do a search and you find a company, you're looking for that service, so you're leaning towards the purchase process. Whereas if it's a cold database and I go and find Sonya on a database and you get a random call from me, you're not necessarily looking. So the percentage of
Right. The chances of
success,
me answering the phone or engaging are lower than someone
of
that's
course,
looking for that service. No, that makes total
absolutely, yeah,
sense. Yeah, and I want to stick on this AI, outbound, inbound. I just want to break it down. So, what does it look like for someone that has no systems, none, compared to what it looks like in today? So, let's talk about, companies that have no systems.
yeah. So again, let's take a company back to day one. So we have an idea, we start a business, that business is becoming successful, we're selling products or services, and we typically will start with some Excel or Google Sheets. And we'll put some data in there. We'll maybe build a list of clients or conversations that we're having, or, I've got piles of business cards sat in front of me now, and I always have. And sat in front of me, just in front of my phone here, there's about 9 business cards out of the 300 that I've got of particular people that I thought
I've
they
got
are.
him.
There you go.
I've got him here
Um,
too.
um,
I'm following. I'm
but
laughing.
they're all in my database, but these people here are particular people that I want to connect with. So at a certain point, somebody with the best memory in the world, your average business person might remember 10, maybe 20 conversations, but you get to 100, 200, 300, 1,000. I've never met somebody that can just recall, yeah, that's the person, and then recall all the notes. And I met them on Tuesday at 3 p.m. It just doesn't happen. So, at some time we have to systemize our business. So this person then goes for a journey of trying to find what to do. And up to not so long ago, you would find 6, 7, 8 pieces of software that you would, we'd get the duct tape and tie them together and kind of make this functional Frankenstein of a machine for our business. And it works, but then when one of them breaks, the chain of events breaks, and you don't realize. And as businesses, we're going networking, we're using paid ads, we're getting referrals. There's all these different ways to bring business into your business, and it just gets busy. And what you don't want to be as a business owner is a busy fool. And what a busy fool is somebody that's doing everything. They're doing it all manually. They're not using any software systems. They're scared to take on staff because of the commitment and the cost. And I have these conversations all the time. And that's really where an all-in-one system, software platform can be absolutely game-changing for your business. So what we do is we have an all-in-one platform, and we see a lot of people, even with really, really good solutions, they kind of throw it at the client, and it's an automated onboarding process, and then they leave the client to it. And then if you look at their retention rates, so just switching this to a software company, retention rates are not very good, because I've opened many softwares and gone, yeah, really excited, and I look at it and I go, "Oh, I'm just lost," and that's it, you've lost me. And and off you go. So whilst we want to talk about AI and automations and systems, in a process we've taken on a client for us and offering these systematic approaches and softwares, it's really, really important to really understand the client and really deep dive into their business and understand, is this the right time to go from the spreadsheets to a full-on system? And if it is, then it's great. We have the conversation, and we literally change the way businesses process data, the way that they sell, the way that they market themselves. But just to come back to your point, is it's absolutely vital to embrace technology and use a systematic approach past the spreadsheets as soon as is reasonably possible in your business. And if I had any overheads, in 2025, would I have an office or would I have software programs to run the business? And I'd rather have the software programs than the we'd call it the postcode or the zip code, right?
The brick and
Because
mortar, the place that everybody
yeah,
drives by and sees the beautiful sign and thinks you're oh, they must be doing really good because, they're right downtown Fairfax and they have this. No, screw all that. Like, yeah, it
Yeah,
needs to
well,
be the
it's interesting, right?
foundation. It's
Yeah,
it's like oxygen is to a human. Without oxygen,
yeah,
you won't live.
you're in
That's
trouble.
how I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what that reminds me of is, big electronic billboards. So if we go to the extreme and we think Vegas, with big electronic billboards, there's a purpose there because, it's mostly a vacation place and you're advertising for tourists. But when you look at big billboards, and I know, across the US, there's, big billboard advertising is huge. But the cost of that compared to just targeting a specific set of groups on a social media platform within a specific geographical area, you just can't beat that, you know? And I guess that's a good point of embracing technology. We used to have the yellow pages, you had the big book with all the businesses in,
Yeah.
and then I remember a guy who had this company called the Disc Directory, and he went around all the local businesses in the city, and he sold you a CD with all the businesses on. That was before the days of Google, and then we had this thing called the internet, and what happened was the yellow pages disappeared.
Yep.
One of the landmarks of British culture is the big red telephone box. People recognise that as an
I was
icon
just
of
going to say
Britain.
telephones.
Um,
I remember having landlines. I
yeah,
mean, I'm a Gen X. I mean, I'm born in 69. I remember the rotary phone. We only had 5 numbers at my grandmother's house, 40542. Then it became 7 numbers. Then it was the area code. And I remember in high school, running and having to be home so that I could go talk to my friends and waiting for the phone to ring. And now we have cell phones. I mean, nobody has a landline anymore. I mean, maybe
exactly.
you do if you have a brick and mortar. I mean, you might need it, but yeah. So let's just dive into the marketing because I mean, I'm really having fun with this because we're talking, from sticky notes to spreadsheets, technology. People don't want it. Okay. So what do you say to the company that says, oh, I don't have time for marketing. I don't have the money to market. It's too expensive. It doesn't work. I've been running my business off of word of mouth for the last 20 years. And, I go to some of these BNI meetings or whatever, and I just look at them. I mean, I can't tell you the conversations I've had in the last 6 months. I actually am still hearing this. And I'm going, okay, well, I don't want to burst your bubble or anything, but guess what? The guy down the street, I mean, he's going to leave you in the dust. And it's not because you're not a good company. You don't do great work. Like I know that, but you're going to find yourself in bankruptcy in no time if you cannot keep up with the times. So let's talk about marketing. Let's talk about how important it is.
Yeah. So again, live example. I have somebody I know who is buying accountancy firms in the UK. So we call them baby boomers. And they've had businesses since the 60s, 70s. They've got nobody to hand the business down to. And they don't, even though they're accountancy, so their bookkeeping's good, they haven't embraced technology. So you would buy a company in what we use a term called EBITDA in the UK, which is the value after tax and profits and stuff. And that's how you value a company. So if I was to come and buy Sonya's company today, I would say a multiple on the EBITDA. So the net profits, let's call it $100,000 for simplicity. And let's say you had a 3 or 4 EBITDA, your company is worth $300,000 or $400,000, because I'm doing the multiple of 3 or 4. And he's buying these companies at 0.5 EBITDA. And the reason is they've got loads of clients, they're making money, but hasn't embraced technology, so it's hard to scale. What he's doing is acquisitioning them into a technology-driven business and then exploding them and owning market share. So it's really interesting. So I think that, everybody has to embrace the growth. We've used telephones, I mean, even like aeroplanes, right? How much have they advanced over the years, right? So technology moves on with everything. If you don't embrace it, then you may have a good business right now. You may have 1,000 clients right now, but at some point in the future, those clients might not be as loyal as you think they are, because they can get better service cheaper, or they can get a better aftercare process due to technology as well. So I think all of that's really relevant, and it's, if you start from the beginning, like we just said, brand new starting business, you can embrace technology straight away. If you have a large business, that can be very difficult. You see some major corporations still on ancient softwares because the process of actually doing it is too huge. They're actually scared of it, and I've also seen large corporations who have embraced new technology and they've had a hell of a time doing it, like real bad time, but the end result coming out of it actually achieves, more than they'd ever hoped for. So,
and I do want to touch on that because I had a conversation last night with a gentleman, federal government sector, huge company, huge corporation. And we got into the conversations about CRM, and he said, what we have is a dinosaur, but it would cost us way too much to change. Like like I can't even imagine what it would take to make that step to change. We know we need to, but the cost and the training is just, it puts them in a place. It's a bottleneck, right? So how do we talk to these companies and let them know that, we're here to hold their hand. We know it's going to be a transition, right? We understand that. But it's something that they have to do at some point, whether it's with us or they wait and, they find somebody else. It's inevitable. What do you
absolutely.
say to
I,
them?
f- I think that the government example is interesting, because, respectfully, talking about governments, they have endless pots of money in one way because they have our tax money, and
That's
they're
right.
very good at not embracing early enough, which actually spend now would save money on the back end, tenfold. Um, and it is difficult when I always say, if a company has to have a board meeting to decide what coffee to have at the board meeting, then they need to, they need to micromanage their business more, or micromanage the departments more. I had a friend once who worked at what we call the local council, and the whole council actually made a massive change, and they diverted their the setting of the council up into like micro businesses. So there was a printing firm, and there's a marketing firm inside of the council, and each department would go and buy services internally, and it actually
Okay.
helped them to project manage what services actually mattered, and embrace technologies and stuff, which was interesting. But I think that larger corporations, councils, governments, whoever it might be, it's really the same thing, isn't it? Is that they've got to learn to be able to take this on, and there's a decision maker or a board of decision makers there somewhere, and it's the same thing. Is these services need to be put in place. They need to be offered and be affordable and be accessible. And then companies who are offering these services, doesn't matter if it's us or somebody else, they need to be able to deliver that on a consistent basis. We would always have a bit of a joke, and you'd see a sign saying, "Oh, roadworks until September," and you'd be like, "Okay, see you in 3 years."
Right.
Because and I was living in Dubai for nearly a couple of years, and if you look at the way that they build infrastructure there, it's incredible. It's incredible how fast they build, and I mean, the time that I lived there, that there's this big sort of flyover that went up and over and off, off to the left, and I would say that was probably maybe 300 meters high, this
Okay.
flyover, and it was over about 7 existing freeways.
Oh my
Um,
God.
and they built it in 2 months from start to finish, and
What?
did it. And I would say that it was from where you enter this flyover to the end, as maybe like 4,000 meters in length, and it just went up. It just went up so fast, and that's how they build there. And I just think, how have they got it so right? And other countries, get
Oh,
into these like
no,
debates
I
and
mean,
yeah.
I moved from Texas, but from Louisiana, and I lived in Texas, and I swear I-10 from Louisiana, from Beaumont to Houston. If I go back, I haven't driven that road in years. I went to my aunt's house in May. That shit is still has cones. It still has, the orange cones. It's still under construction. I left there in 2018. I'm like, I don't think it's ever going to be done. Like, yeah, that's funny that you bring that up because, yeah, I don't know what makes the difference between how Dubai could do it in 2 months and, here we're going on 20 years and the shit's still there. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's crazy. But it's, I think the point of the conversation really is about embracing the tech, implementing. It's going to have to happen at some point. So that, the earlier you start, the more it's going to develop your local government or your personal business or your corporation. And you're going to be ahead of the curve, and even with, what we offer as a company to other businesses, we work for some larger businesses like franchises, as you know. We work with some very large marketing companies, and everything in between. And, these smaller companies are the ones that are going to become the larger businesses because they're embracing this now.
Right.
And it's just incredible what it can do. We spent about £1.5 million in our recruitment company in the UK on software. It was completely custom built software. And as technology grew and AI came out and the same systems that we supply today, we then developed a recruitment process piece of software that cost about £50,000, I believe. And then the company that was supplying that, who was one of a major corporation, who I won't name, the subscriptions were about £6,000 per month because it was £50 or £60 per user and the business was of a certain size. And I rebuilt that system myself. I'm not a coder, I'm not a software developer, but just from business knowledge in a front end developed piece of software, and I rebuilt it in 48 hours. And that was really the beginning of the journey of this company, of Obsessed to Success, and how it started, because I realized, how big a difference could we make to business owners if we were able to reach out to them and build these software systems for them.
Right. So I gotta put in my 2 cents about this recruitment thing because, until I met you, I didn't know that I could help a company with recruitment. And so I'm going to tell you a little story about last night. As I was at this networking event, I meet this guy. I met two guys. One guy's, oh, I'm in staffing. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I met this other guy. I've got his card. But I actually, he was like a deer in headlights because I was so on point. So he's telling me that, no, he's the one that gets candidates for the company. He is a recruitment company. And I said, well, how do you get these candidates? Where do you find these candidates? How do you deliver that to your client? He stopped a second and he was like, he thought about it. I don't remember what his answer was because, like you said, I probably had 300 conversations last night. But I just said, if I had a tool that could help you deliver to your client and you could go find those candidates quicker, faster, you could vet them, you could interview them, you could put them through a pipeline, would you be interested in having a conversation with me? He was like, yeah. I said, great. I got out my phone, gave him the code. Here, scan this. He scanned it. He's in the CRM now. Now, what's the next step? Let's walk this through, right? Like, what's the play? So I without having to send him an email, didn't have to get his phone number, don't have to even look at his business card again, because all he did was scan a code. It went into my WhatsApp, went into the CRM. So let's just play this out for people. What's the next step? What happens now?
So we have QR codes that we generate inside the system. That automatically puts them into the system as a contact. An AI agent will then automatically phone them afterwards. It will talk to them and say, hey, Sonya, we met you at the networking event. I'd love to get an appointment on the diary with you and Kalvin. But before we do that, I'd love to just check that this is a good fit for you. The AI agent will then go through with the person and make sure that all of our times are valuable, right? So it will make sure that it's a good fitting for us, a good fitting for the person, and we're not just wasting our time in either direction. It will prospect them, ask them any questions, and it will gather all of the information that you need to know before you spend time on either a call or a Zoom or a face-to-face meeting with somebody. And it actually improves your overall process of how you deal with prospects, if you want to call them that. And that's just one of the features that we've kind of custom built inside the platform that we offer. And it's super efficient. We just talked about business cards. We've got all these business cards. We still get given business cards, but all of those people go straight into the system. We have an app that goes on your phone, and you can actually just scan a business card, and it scans their details off the card and just puts them into the system. And that can also trigger an AI outbound call to then nurture them further. I see so many times people going to networking events and gathering business cards, and then if you really think about it, any business owner that's listening to this, how often do you follow up with every single person that you meet? And then further, you go and do a Zoom or go and have a coffee, or you have a chat on the phone, and it's a really good conversation. And the first thing you do is you go to another networking event and you go and find somebody else and you have another coffee. But actually, if you take a step back and put people into a system that nurtures people over time, you'll find that those conversations turn into business. This week, I've been on conversations with people in New Zealand, Australia, the UAE, in the UK, in the USA, and actually was on a call with a girl that I met in Dubai at a business conference, and she was in Portugal, and we spoke about doing some business before, and then just occasionally catch up with her, and then I was on another podcast, and we posted some content about that podcast, and she suddenly appeared in my inbox and said, "Oh, by the way, I've got a client I need to introduce to you." So because we've spoken 3, 4, 5 times, and I've had one meeting with her face to face outside of that conference, she's seeing me often enough that she's aware of me and knows who I am and what I do. And then when the opportunity to do a collaboration with one of her clients came up, and then she saw the other podcast, all of a sudden she thought of me, So, taking that back to the QR code and getting them in the system, is all of this is about marketing and nurturing and, prospecting people. And, my opinion is marketing and sales is the art of annoying somebody enough that they're not annoyed with you, making enough contact points, So, but just one of the things that this amazing system does.
I know, but I mean, me personally, I'm so grateful that now I'm partnered with you and I have the system, because, at some point, I was just having to remind myself constantly, oh, when's the last time that I talked to such and such? I think it's been maybe 4 weeks. Is it time for me to, is it the right time for me to reach back out? But I've probably lost several clients because I forgot about them, or I didn't follow up, and when I should have. And if I had had the right process in place, maybe I'd be in a better place today, financially, personally, business wise. I don't know. So let's just talk about growth through structure, not hustle. Let's set up the vision for people. Because, I know that you've helped global teams. We've talked about, all the people that you are talking about, in all of these different locations. I know you went to South Africa, UK, Switzerland, Australia. We got people on the team from the Philippines, UK, Dubai. And I'm number one in the US, hopefully. And I'm really trying to get our name out there. But what does it take to build like a freedom business instead of a job? Let's just talk to people that are thinking maybe they want to go into business. They're tired of that 9 to 5 grind. Let's talk about the global teams. Let's talk about your vision on that.
Yeah, sure. So I think whether you have a bricks and mortar, whether you have a digital, you're a digital nomad, you're an online business, the system that we provide is, we don't have a niche. We don't have a specific group of businesses in an industry that we chase. We, kind of, throw our net out there and capture different types of businesses and then custom build the system for them. And I think it's really important, to really understand where your business is at, where it's going. And, some of the things that our system does, so of course it has voice calling in and out, which is AI calling. It has full VoIP telephone systems built into it. It has the conversational AI. You can build websites and sales funnels and do webinars on there. You've got full calendar capability. You can connect all of your socials and have every place that you speak to somebody, SMS, WhatsApp. I know I mentioned WhatsApp, we're huge on WhatsApp here and in Europe and the Middle East as well. And all of your social, and it brings them all into one channel, into one place, and you can see all of the conversations, even if you have different team members speaking to those the same contact. You can take payments in the system. You can set up subscriptions. There's a whole world of things it does. One of the really cool things is the lead generation tool. I know we were talking about that this week. You could say, look, I'm looking for electricians in Washington, DC. And we can just pull a list of 60, 70 of them instantly, click a button, they're into the system, tag them, and the AI will do its job and start nurturing them. Or the email marketing campaigns can kick in at the click of a button and start nurturing those people over a period of time. There's client acquisition, there's sales and marketing, there's aftercare of any description, there's software support, whatever it is your business does, and we do all of those things in the software that we supply. But for me, the really important thing is focusing on that front end, the sales funnel. You've got top of funnel, which is my leads. We
Right.
use the term funnel because we funnel them out, and we get the good ones at the bottom, like the panning for gold, and we find those good leads. And what this system does, I think I looked this morning, at the moment we have about 600 different conversations ongoing. Are all of those people going to buy from me? Probably not, but we know exactly what stage every single one of those clients is.
And how you
It's the
couldn't possibly
management of
do that,
that.
and you couldn't possibly do that in your mind. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what's amazing to me. I mean, sometimes when we get on these demos and I see your calendar and I see all these conversations and how all you gotta do is put their name in and you can go see every conversation. Even if, like you said, you have different team members that are, emailing or this or that. I mean, it's right there in front of you. You know that you're going to have a meeting with them. Maybe you're ready to close. You've been nurturing it for months. Now you got to go see, okay, what have we talked about? When did we meet? It's just right there. And it's
Absolutely, yeah.
powerful. I mean, that's powerful. That is a powerful tool. And I just want to mention about the lead generator tool. Yeah, so I had a deep dive yesterday with a they're a restoration company, like what we were talking about with the franchise. They do the same thing. And I was like, well, who's your ideal client? Yeah, you want to work with plumbers, maybe HOAs. I was all over the place thinking of like, how this lead generator tool could get them the people that they need to be in front of. And he said to me, he says, man, all of those are good, but you missed one. And I said, what is it? He says, insurance agents. When your house is flooding, you got to call the insurance agent like immediately. Like I got to get a restoration company out here, plumber, electrician, whatever. I mean, some valve is busted. And I'm like, well, what if I had a tool that could allow you to right now start nurturing every real estate or every insurance agent in the entire Northern Virginia area? Would that be something you'd want to do? It's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And this is the thing, is there's so many verticals to it. I don't know exactly, but I would estimate that we've probably built 20 different industries, systems for them. And, as we talk, even when we're talking, you realize different, you're mentioning, insurance agents as one example, and there's just, it's almost endless to what how we can improve systems for businesses and industries, and I tell you what, the days are interesting. The days are interesting with all these different people, and and businesses at different levels. We talked earlier about starter businesses and when do you adopt this technology. I gave an example of a fitness business earlier. Yeah, they're certainly not a new business, but they're intelligent enough to embrace this technology to really enhance what they're doing. Yeah, I mean, so many. There was another client this week, and they do. It's an insolvency practitioner. So when a business gets in trouble and they close their doors, but they want to use the same name to trade, there's a process they have to go through, and
Okay.
we took his process from 4.5 hours to 3 minutes using the system. So yeah,
Yeah.
now all we have to do is add the contact and put one tag on them, and the system will just
There you
do the
go.
rest.
Right. So, we're going to be wrapping up here. I mean, I can't believe we're going on almost an hour because, I mean, we could talk about this. I could have Kalvin on here. I mean, we could probably talk 4 more hours, but every time I have a conversation with somebody, I'm learning, just how unlimited it is for us and what kind of companies we can help. So anybody that's listening to this today, whether you're in construction, the trades, like how and I have gone over, I mean, a gym owner, the federal government, IT, we've talked to security, cybersecurity people, we've talked to utility companies, we've talked to people that are making apps, we've talked to people that have software, they have a product, we've talked to military, we've talked to colonels that fought in Afghanistan and Iraq. And I mean, it's just unlimited of the people that between the two of us, we're meeting on LinkedIn, meeting at all of these networking events.